Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. In today's video we're talking about the pantry pests and how to keep them away from your foods in your cupboard. First of all, for you guys who are not from UK, we don't as such have a pantries like some lucky guys in America. Many people generally store their store their preps in our kitchen cupboards, or we have what we call a hallway cupboard, so under the stair cupboards that get converted with a shelving or racking. And some people use and sometimes convert the rooms, separate spare rooms, into what we call a pantry. So when I refer to pantry, I'll be talking on the basis of having our cupboards or stairs cupboards converted into, and this is what we call a pantry, sorry. Anyway, I just wanted to get this clear because I know, guys, in America, you are lucky enough, many of you are lucky enough to have either basements or some sort of other porches and things like this. We, unfortunately, not so lucky. So our pantries are our cupboards, be it the kitchen ones or the hallway ones or spare bedrooms. So here we are. Anyway, nonetheless, guys, okay, when we're talking about the pests, they are probably one of the most irritating things that could irritate and ruin your whole preps. And it is so important to make sure that you keep an eye out and keep this under control. So I'm just going to go through a couple of things that I do and a couple of things that I read that are actually quite apparently efficient to keep the pests away from your cupboard. First of all, let's cover the four main pests, as I'm aware, are kind of in UK and many other countries, are weevils, we have flower mites, grain beetle, and then we have moths. And in some cases, people might have a mice or rat infestations or occasional ones that pop in and trying to nick and eat through their foods. Again, this is probably quite a rare scenario, and I would think there'd probably be somewhere in either people where they live a little bit in the country and maybe their pantry adjacent to the property, or maybe in the basements, or in some cases I know people keep some preps in the loft. So this is kind of the areas that will be more susceptible to the mice and rats. However, I think as an average person in the UK, I would think that the four other pests, which is obviously the weevils and mites, are the ones that we normally have to be more aware of. As first of all, to be fair, myself personally, I've only experienced an infestation of the flower mites, and to be fair, that was kind of my own fault, really. Again, without really knowing too much before, it's been like a few years back, I've bought a lot of flour. And I bought flour from wholesalers, so it came in sort of a cardboard box. It had the bag, sort of bag wrap on the top, but the flour things were kind of a bit open. You know, normally you get the flowers and they have a little bit of sort of openings and flour kind of goes everywhere. And I did a bad mistake of putting this into under my stairs cupboard. But we also had an old carpet there, which I didn't really think anything to it. And however, I left the flour there it was good for probably a good year, and then unfortunately, when I come to actually resort and do something with this cupboard, I found the infestation of the flower mites. And they're such a tiny things, guys. They're almost impossible to see with the naked eye. They're pretty much translucent or like a creamy in color, but they do have a brownish legs. And this is generally, if you have a good eyesight, this is what you spot. And this is, unfortunately, when I've seen this, it's difficult to unsee that. And from now on, I kind of want to make sure that doesn't happen again. So the first things first, guys, is to make sure that obviously your pantry is clean. I'm going to be covering things, guys. It's the basics of cleanliness, but you have to be super vigilant. So you have to make sure that where you store your dry goods, the things are cleaned regularly. One of the main things as well, before I get into the cleanliness part, guys, is when you purchase a product from a supermarket, okay, make sure there is no infestation already happening inside. I haven't seen personally myself anything on the shelves that you might see already weevils inside. However, I've seen many pictures and many people on the social media actually posting images and videos of them picking up a pasta from a supermarket and actually having the weevils already inside. And then obviously, if you inadvertently just pick the pack without checking and bring this home and then put this in your pantry, then you're going to be in big trouble. So the rule number one is that you check what you buy and you make sure that you quarantine what you buy in a separate place for at least a week to make sure nothing's there. Because the worst thing you can do is to bring something in from somewhere without realizing something's inside, put this in your pantry or in your cupboard, and then find out that whatever was in there is going to infest your whole cupboard. So the same thing that goes with the plants is always a rule, guys. When you bring something new that might have any diseases and things, you keep this aside for a little while, make sure nothing's manifest from that, and then you put it together in a cupboard. So second things as well, guys, prior to you putting the foods in your storage, it depends again whether you do this for a long-term or a short-term storage. As I said, generally, like with the rice and stuff, you can either freeze it or you can just vacuum pack it or put oxygen absorber in a glass container. That's absolutely fine. Generally, if you put in stuff in the short-term storage, you don't particularly have to do a lot with anything. However, it's still advisable to repackage that, because sometimes packaging also can carry some pests. One thing I would strongly suggest, guys, if you do buy beans, that you condition the beans. I've done this in different ways, okay? I have put my beans into an oven at 80, I think it was 80 degrees. I did this in the video for about half an hour. It's basically, if I know there's any eggs anywhere in the beans, then they're killed over. So this way, safely, I can just put them in a, say, glass container or normal vacuum packed bag without even worried about oxygen absorber, because things have been killed inside. Or alternatively, if you don't want to waste the electricity and doing this, you can bravely put the beans in whatever container you want. Make sure you use oxygen absorber. You'll be absolutely fine. Well, it should be anyway. But always be vigilant, guys. Always be vigilant and try to make sure that nothing unprocessed goes with your long-term food storage, because there's been stories, I read stories before, when people literally contaminated the whole prepping cupboard or pantries with the pests because of the lack of attention to detail when you get the stuff home. So the rule number 2 or rule number 3, guys, is to keep your pantry clean. And it's not one of those things that you guys just, you clean your pantry, you put your stuff in there, whether it's for that medium term, and you leave it there. This is not how it goes. As I said, unfortunately, even if you're taking the greatest precautions of making sure that when you bring stuff in from supermarket, you repackage it, you make sure nothing's there, you put this away. In some cases, like things like beetles or moths can still get in from the outside. So for example, if I have my medium term cupboard here, and I keep opening it, taking stuff in and out, inadvertently some bugs could get in there and not spotted on time, that could create an absolute disaster. So make sure you regularly clean your pantries and cupboards out. I do this as a rule of roughly about 6 months. It could be a little bit OTT, but as you know, I have an OCD, so I have to make sure that things are properly clean and properly kind of perfect. Because to be fair, it doesn't take long. If you just devote like 1 hour to each cupboard that you have, or half a day to do your big cupboard to get this sorted, make sure you hoover, make sure you dust, make sure you wipe, and then you go again, and make sure that you check your preps inside of the package. Make sure nothing infested from there, because if you miss something and then you left it all in the cupboard, of course the things will spread. So as a rule, guys, the vinegar, 50-50 vinegar and 50-50 water solution with a little bit of lemon juice, this is what I use to clean my kitchen cupboards, because they have like a melamine shelves, and anywhere else I'm storing stuff, that shelves are easily wipeable, I use that solution, because apparently bugs don't like the smell. Okay, secondly, I'm making the tiny little scent bags, if you wish, okay, because bugs are really not keen on the really strong smells. I've got a whole lot of bay leaves, because I do grow my own bay tree. I have a lot of this little muslin cloths, okay, and what I do, I generally put a little bit of lime or lemon or orange, whatever it is that you have, drying as a segment on the bottom just to keep the shape. I put the bay leaves in there, and I also put just a drop of lavender oil just on the fabric itself, and then you can bravely put this inside your cupboards, and to make sure that this will it'll perfume your cupboard nicely, and it will deter all the bugs as well, because yes, the lavender, the citrus and the bay leaves are something that apparently they don't like. So this is something that I have laying around all over the place. At the same time, I do have, and I have been known to, if you store in some of your preps in the big tubs, like plastic tubs, whether you keep it under the bed or whatever you guys keep them, I know many people do, and I do the same as well. I do have, I do have a boxes full of vacuum packed with oxygen absorbers, mylar bagged stuff. However, I will still put a bay leaf in the container majority of the times, especially with the rice, and then I'll still just chuck some bay leaves around the box just as a precautionary measure. And the same thing, I do have occasionally put stuff, bay leaves in my tall cupboards where I have the preps, because I just find it smells nicely, and it's kind of meant to be a deterrent. And another thing, guys, I found out that was quite of interest to myself, which I'm going to start using, it's actually using the Vicks Vapor Rub it is stinky, right? It smells really herbally, very medicinal, and apparently bugs don't like that. So I'm like, this is really good, okay? For the places, for example, I have a shelved cupboard that has like MDF shelves, okay? And it's not so easy for me just to sort of wipe this with a vinegary spray because it kind of will absorb the moisture. But on the upside, because of that, I can dab a little bit of Vicks or dab a little bit of oil, which will soak into the wood and it will perfume and deter for quite a while, which is, I think, is absolutely genius idea. They are fairly inexpensive, and you only literally just need to put a little bit in the corner somewhere and it will smell for ages. And the last thing, guys, I wanted to let you know that I never do is I never keep my flour with any other dry produce. I know it sounds a bit weird, but because I had a really, really bad example with my flour situation, and I have since that had one issue where I forgot about a tiny bit of flour that was left in the bag. You know, one of those when you bake and you have a tiny bit left and you don't want to throw this away and you just can't add it onto the recipe for whatever reason. It just goes to the back of a cupboard and then a new flour comes out, and I don't repackage my flour for the use. It's really bad. I should really have this glass jar, but I genuinely go through with that fast enough without worrying about anything sort of manifesting inside it. However, I had an instance where I had a tiny little bit bag of flour left. It's got put towards behind of the cupboard, and unfortunately shortly after I've noticed the tiny little critters running around the cupboard. And again, and this is the reason why I do not keep my flour near another dry product. I keep this with my tins, the tins that are used imminently. So in this, my stupid instance again of forgetting a tiny piece of flour in the back that got infested with the flour mite, all my preps were safe. It was just that one cupboard, and they normally just congregate around the flour because that's where they live, and everything else was safe. So this is my kind of rule of never putting flour next to anything else, because purely I'm the one that had issue with the flour mites. I'm hoping that I would never have to experience any of the other issues with any other pest, because I think it's just horrible and it could literally be absolutely heartbreaking. You know, guys, we work hard for our money. We do the best we can. We'll prep as hard as we can. And I know, obviously, we're trying to do the best precautionary measures to make sure everything is safe and secured. But obviously, unfortunately, I know things just don't always go to plan. So I think it could be really heartbreaking. So I'm on a mission to make sure that this never happens, and hopefully sharing this little tips with you will help you also to keep your pests away. So anyway, I hope you guys find this video helpful. Don't forget to thumbs up, maybe subscribe if you haven't already, and I shall see you in the next video. Bye bye.